In my many years presiding over this bench, and we are speaking about a span of more than 4 decades here, one begins to believe they have witnessed everything possible. Police officers appear before me quite frequently. They are generally good people. Most of them serve our community with dedication, protect our families, and certainly deserve our collective respect. However, on that specific Tuesday morning in November, something entered my courtroom that truly made my blood run cold. Let me describe Chief Robert Mancuso to you. He stood 6'2" with silver hair and a uniform pressed to absolute perfection. He marched into my courtroom as if he owned the entire building. And the truth is, in his own mind, he likely believed he did. This situation was not about a simple parking ticket or some minor violation of the code. The FBI had actually been constructing a massive case against this individual for 2 years. We are talking about corruption, bribery, and evidence tampering, the whole works. Yet nobody in Providence was aware of that reality just yet. I distinctly remember arriving at the courthouse that morning early, just as I always do. I have been following that routine for 40 years. My father always taught me, "Frank, if you are not 10 minutes early, you are already late." So there I sat at 8:20 a.m., reviewing my daily docket with a cup of coffee that Christina had prepared for me. It was strong black coffee, served the traditional Italian way. That is when I noticed his name on the list. Chief Robert Mancuso, contempt of court. To explain how this all began, I need to back up a bit. 3 months prior, we had a case involving an Officer Tommy Rodriguez. He was a good kid with 5 years on the force, married with 2 young daughters. He had been accused of using excessive force during what should have been a routine traffic stop. There was video evidence and witness testimony. Everything seemed to be there. But something felt fundamentally wrong about the case file. Officer Rodriguez's partner on that day was originally supposed to testify. However, quite suddenly, his official report vanished. Then the dash cam footage went missing as well. Eventually, witnesses began changing their accounts of the events. One by one, the pieces of evidence were disappearing and the prosecution's case was effectively falling apart. That was the moment when the federal prosecutors decided to step in. They strongly suspected that someone high up in the chain of command was interfering with the proceedings. They were looking for someone with enough institutional power to make evidence vanish and witnesses alter their minds. They were looking for someone exactly like a police chief. Consequently, they subpoenaed Chief Mancuso to testify under oath regarding the missing evidence. It was a simple legal procedure: show up, answer the questions, and tell the truth. But Mancuso never appeared, not the first time, nor the second. That is precisely how he ended up in my courtroom facing a contempt charge. I was looking at the docket that morning when Christina leaned over and whispered, "Judge, this one is quite unusual." Unusual? That was certainly putting it mildly. In my 40 years, I have had police officers before me, perhaps a dozen times for serious legal matters. They were always professional and always respectful. Even when they were in the wrong, they respected the judicial process. But something felt distinctly different that particular morning. There were far more people in my courtroom than usual. There were lawyers present whom I did not recognize and men in suits sitting in the back rows. Agent Sarah Collins from the FBI was there, though I didn't know her identity at the time. She was just another face in the gallery. Yet there was something about the way she observed everything that caught my eye. Then Chief Mancuso walked into my courtroom at 9:30 sharp. But the way he walked was telling. It was as if he were doing me a personal favor just by appearing. There was no respect and no humility, only arrogance, pure, unadulterated arrogance. He carried this smirk on his face as if the entire proceeding was beneath his dignity. I thought to myself, "Frank, your father did not teach you to accept disrespect from anyone, regardless of whether they wear a badge or not." Walking behind him was his lawyer, wearing an expensive suit from downtown Providence. He was the kind of attorney who charges $500 an hour and assumes he can intimidate local judges. But I have been dealing with lawyers longer than that man has been drawing breath. "Chief Mancuso," I said, looking him directly in the eyes, "you failed to appear for your court-ordered testimony last week. Do you have an explanation for this?" The man, and I will never forget this specific moment for the rest of my life, looked me right in the eye, and said, "Judge, with all due respect, I had more important things to do. I run a police department. I have real criminals to catch, not sit around here answering questions about mere paperwork." More important things? Paperwork? This matter involved potential witness intimidation and the tampering of evidence. I told him, "Chief, in this courtroom, there's nothing more important than following the law. It is the same law you swore a sacred oath to uphold when you pinned that badge onto your chest." His lawyer leaned over and whispered something, likely advising him to remain quiet and offer an apology. But Chief Mancuso was not interested in apologies. He was only interested in demonstrating to everyone in that room that he was the one in charge. He then took a step closer to my bench, a move nobody makes without permission, and said, "Judge Caprio, I think you need to understand something. I have been protecting this city for 25 years. I have relationships with people you would not believe. Very important people. The mayor, the governor, and major business leaders. They all depend on me to keep this city safe." I could feel my blood pressure starting to rise. I have seen bullies before. Growing up in Providence, when the neighborhood was tough and you had to earn your respect every single day, I learned how to identify a bully from a mile away. My father worked 3 jobs to support us: construction during the day, security at night, and dock work on the weekends. He taught me that no matter how much power a person possesses, they never have the right to abuse it. This man was the worst kind of bully, the kind with a badge and 25 years of getting away with it. "Chief," I said, keeping my voice steady but firm, "the only relationship that matters in this courtroom is your relationship with the truth. Now, I am going to ask you one more time. Do you understand why you are here?" Instead of answering, he turned around to look at the packed courtroom. All those people were watching, waiting to see what would occur next. He then turned back to me with a look of absolute contempt. "Judge," he said, his voice rising, "I think you need to understand something. I run this town. Not the mayor, not the city council, and certainly not you. I decide what happens on these streets. I decide which cases get priority and what evidence is important. Frankly, I don't think you appreciate the difficult position you are putting me in." The courtroom went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I have had people yell at me before, drunk drivers angry about their licenses, or parents whose children were arrested, people having the worst day of their lives. But this was different. This was a sworn law enforcement officer telling a judge that he was above the law. I looked around the room. There was old Mrs. Patterson, who has watched our proceedings for 15 years. She looked horrified. There were young law students from Brown University taking notes frantically. Regular lawyers were staring in disbelief. I took off my glasses, which I rarely do unless I am very serious, and cleaned them slowly while I considered my response. I thought about my father, who came here from Italy with nothing but hope. I thought about every officer who served with integrity. "Chief Mancuso," I said, standing up from my bench, another thing I almost never do, "let me tell you something about how this works. Nobody runs this town except the law. Not you, not me, not the mayor. The law. And right now, you are in violation of it." But he was not finished. This public servant completely lost his self-control. His face turned red, his voice grew louder, and he started pointing his finger at me like I was some rookie cop he was dressing down. "You know what, Judge?" he shouted, his voice echoing. "I have been nice so far, but you need a reality check. You sit up there in your black robe thinking you are important, but let me tell you how the real world works. I have files on everybody in this city, judges included. I know who owes money, who is having affairs, and who has gambling problems. So think very carefully about how you want to handle this." Files on judges? Was he actually threatening me in open court in front of 30 witnesses? I couldn't believe it. In 40 years, nobody had ever threatened me like that. Not drug dealers, not the mob, not anyone. I looked around again. Christina was pale. The court reporter had stopped typing and was just staring. Some lawyers looked scared, others disgusted. But Agent Sarah Collins caught my eye. She was in the back row, and she gave me the slightest nod. That is when I realized this was bigger than contempt. They had been waiting for this. They wanted to see how far Mancuso would go when his back was against the wall. I sat back down and folded my hands. "Chief," I said calmly, "are you threatening this court?" "I'm not threatening anybody," he replied, though his voice was shaking now. I'm stating the reality of how things work here. You can either work with me like every other judge has for 20 years, or you can find out what happens when you don't play along. His lawyer stood up, suggesting a recess because his client was under stress. Sit down, Counselor, Mancuso snapped. I am handling this. He turned back to me. Judge Caprio, I am giving you one last chance to handle this quietly. Dismiss this citation, forget the subpoena, and we go back to business as usual. Otherwise, I asked him, otherwise what, Chief? He leaned forward and lowered his voice, but in the silence, everyone heard it. Otherwise, I might have to make some phone calls, talk to people about your son Michael's law practice. Funny how many city contracts his firm gets. Might be worth investigating. Now he was threatening my family, my son who worked through law school and built his practice from nothing without my help. This corrupt chief was threatening him because I wouldn't let him ignore a subpoena. I stood up again, feeling a personal anger I hadn't felt in 40 years. Chief Mancuso, I said, my voice carrying, you have just crossed a line that no one has ever crossed in my courtroom. That was when Agent Collins stood up. She walked down the aisle, her badge visible. 3 other agents followed. Mancuso's face went from red to white. All his arrogance vanished. Chief Robert Mancuso, Agent Collins announced, you are under arrest for criminal contempt, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, bribery, violation of civil rights, and threatening a federal judge. I watched the man who ran the town get surrounded. Turns out they had recorded everything, every threat and every admission. They had hidden cameras and microphones. You have the right to remain silent, Collins continued while handcuffing him. His uniform and his 25 years of service didn't matter now. He was just another defendant who thought the law didn't apply to him. His lawyer was taking notes, but the damage was done. As they led him away, he turned back, his shoulders slumped and his voice a whisper. Judge, he said, I made a terrible mistake. I told him, Chief, we all make mistakes, but most people don't make them while threatening a federal investigation and a judge. I called a recess to collect myself. My hands were shaking from adrenaline. I wondered how many people he had bullied or how many cases he had ruined. Christina asked if I was all right. I told her I was fine, but I was thinking of the honest cops he had disgraced. Agent Collins approached me, thanking me for my patience. She explained they needed him to show his true nature in a public forum. I told her that in my courtroom everyone is treated the same, regardless of their badge. She nodded, saying that was why they chose my court. They knew I wouldn't be intimidated. The story hit the news immediately, but the real impact came later. 3 days later, Officer Maria Santos visited me. She had tears in her eyes and thanked me for showing them the badge means something again. She said they were all afraid because he had files on everyone, but I proved nobody is above the law. That made my eyes watery, because that is what justice looks like, knowing the system works for everyone. A week later, Detective Frank Torres told me about the protection rackets Mancuso ran against business owners and how he harassed honest cops. He said I gave them their department back. Eventually, reforms were implemented. Body cameras, review boards, and transparency. Chief Williams later wrote to tell me Mancuso got 8 years in prison and that the department had been rebuilt. Officer Rodriguez's wife also wrote to me. Her husband was exonerated and was back on the job. Mancuso learned that nobody runs this town except the law. He thought his connections made him untouchable, but he was wrong. My father's words about power without humility being corruption were proven true. I still think about that day, how one man's arrogance exposed years of rot. The system worked. The FBI, the court, and the law all functioned as they should. Accountability was achieved. So, if anyone ever tells you they are above the law, remember Mancuso. In a democracy, nobody runs the town except the Constitution. When we stand up to bullies, democracy wins. I am Frank Caprio. Remember, the best judgment is often in your heart, but when it comes to corruption, the law is clear. Nobody is above it. The legacy of integrity. Reflecting on those events, I often find myself sitting in the quiet of my chambers, looking out over the city of Providence. The streets look the same, but the atmosphere within the halls of justice feels lighter. The weight of that Tuesday morning still lingers in my memory, serving as a constant reminder of why we do what we do. It wasn't just about one man's downfall. It was about the restoration of faith in an institution that had been shadowed by doubt for far too long. I think about the many young lawyers who witnessed that day, and I hope they carried away a lesson that no textbook could ever provide. Integrity is not something you wear like a robe or a badge. It is something you practice every single moment you are entrusted with power. The aftermath of the Mancuso trial brought about a period of deep soul-searching for our entire community. We had to ask ourselves how such corruption could flourish for 25 years without being checked. It revealed the cracks in our system, where silence was mistaken for peace and fear was mistaken for order. But in those cracks, we also found the seeds of renewal. The stories that surfaced after the arrest were both heartbreaking and inspiring. We heard from small business owners who had been squeezed for protection money, and from families who had been intimidated into silence. Their courage in coming forward once the shadow of Mancuso was lifted was the true catalyst for the changes we see today. I remember a specific afternoon about a year after the sentencing when I was walking through the park near the courthouse. A man approached me, someone I didn't recognize, and simply shook my hand. He didn't say much, just a quiet, "Thank you, Judge, for holding the line." It was a simple gesture, but it meant more than any plaque or commendation. It was a reminder that the citizens we serve are always watching, always hoping that the people in positions of authority will do the right thing, especially when it is difficult. That handshake represented a regained trust, a belief that the law is a shield for the many, not a sword for the few. In my 40 years, I have seen many changes in the legal landscape, but the fundamental principles remains the same. The law must be blind to status, deaf to threats, and focused solely on the pursuit of truth. When Chief Mancuso walked into my courtroom, he brought with him the ghost of an era where power was synonymous with immunity. He left as a symbol of the end of that era. The reforms that followed, the body cameras, the civilian oversight, the increased transparency, were not just administrative changes, they were a declaration of a new standard of accountability. We learned that the best way to prevent corruption is to invite the light in, to ensure that every action taken in the name of the law can stand up to public scrutiny. I often think of my father during these moments of reflection. He never held a high office and he never had his name in the newspapers, but he had a sense of justice that was as solid as the stone he worked with. He understood that a community is only as strong as its commitment to fairness. If he were here today, I think he would be proud. Not because his son is a judge, but because his son remembered the lessons of the neighborhood. He would be proud that we didn't let a bully win and that we protected the integrity of the bench he respected so much. His voice still echoes in my mind, reminding me that we are all temporary custodians of the positions we hold. The story of Chief Mancuso is a cautionary tale, but it is also a story of hope. It proves that no matter how entrenched corruption may seem, it cannot withstand the collective will of people committed to the truth. It shows that the institutions of our democracy are resilient, provided there are people willing to stand up and defend them. As I look toward the future, I am encouraged by the new generation of officers and lawyers who are entering the system with a clear understanding of their responsibilities. They have seen what happens when power is abused, and they have seen the strength that comes from serving with honor. Every morning when I put on this robe, I am mindful of the responsibility it carries. It is a heavy garment, not because of the fabric, but because of the expectations of every person who walks through those courtroom doors. They expect a fair hearing, a respectful environment, and a judgment based on the law. Whether it is a simple traffic violation or a case of high-level corruption, the standard remains the same. We owe it to the public to be the guardians of their rights and the arbiters of their disputes with total impartiality. That is the promise of our legal system, and it is a promise we must keep every single day. The city of Providence has changed since that Tuesday in November. There is a sense of renewed partnership between the police and the people they serve. The fear that once silenced the community has been replaced by a dialogue that seeks to improve the lives of all residents. It is a slow process, and there is still much work to be done, but we are moving in the right direction. We have learned that justice is not a destination, but a continuous journey, one that requires vigilance, courage, and an unwavering commitment to the principles of equality. As I conclude this reflection, I want to reiterate the importance of the individual in the pursuit of justice. It wasn't just the FBI or the court that brought down Mancuso. It was the individuals who refused to be intimidated. It was Agent Collins, Officer Santos, Detective Torres, and even the silent witnesses in the gallery who all played a part in the unfolding of the truth. We are all stakeholders in our justice system, and we all have a role to play in ensuring its integrity. When we speak up against wrongdoing, when we demand accountability, and when we support those who act with honor, we are strengthening the foundations of our society. So let us carry forward the lessons of the past. Let us remember that the true measure of a man is not the power he wields, but the character he demonstrates. Let us honor the law, not as a set of rules to be manipulated, but as a living testament to our shared values. And let us always remember that in the end, the light of truth will always find its way through the darkness of corruption. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve this community, and I will continue to do so with the same dedication to fairness that my father instilled in me all those years ago. The bench I sit on is more than just a piece of furniture. It is a symbol of the trust placed in me by the people of Providence. It is a trust I do not take lightly. Every case that comes before me is an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to the law and to ensure that justice is served. As long as I am able, I will continue to stand for what is right, to protect the vulnerable, and to hold the powerful accountable, because in this courtroom and in this country, the law belongs to everyone, and nobody, no matter their title or their connections, is ever above it. Thank you once again for taking the time to listen to this story. It is a story about a dark chapter in our history, but it is also a story about the triumph of the human spirit and the enduring power of justice. May we all continue to strive for a world where fairness and integrity are the guiding lights for us all. God bless you, and may God bless the pursuit of justice in every corner of our land. We must remain vigilant, for the price of liberty and justice is eternal awareness and the courage to act when the moment demands it. The road to a better society is paved with the actions of those who refuse to stay silent in the face of wrong. Together we can ensure that the legacy of this day is one of strength, hope, and an unbreakable bond between the law and the people it serves. The sun sets over Providence, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets, but in the halls of justice, the light remains steady. We have seen the worst of humanity in cases of corruption, but we have also seen the best of humanity in the response to it. Let us focus on the best. Let us build on the progress we have made and never lose sight of the ideals that define us. The journey continues, and as long as we walk it together with integrity and purpose, we will find our way to a future where justice truly is for all. It is a privilege to be a part of this journey with you, and I look forward to the challenges and triumphs that lie ahead. In every ruling, in every word, and in every action, let us honor the truth. Justice is a quiet force, often unnoticed until it is tested. But when it is tested, as it was in my courtroom that day, its strength is undeniable. It is the bedrock of our democracy, the foundation upon which all our freedoms are built. We must cherish it, protect it, and never take it for granted. As I look back on 40 years of service, I am filled with gratitude for the opportunity to have played a small part in the grand story of American justice. It is a story that is still being written, and each of us has a hand in its creation. Let us write a chapter that our children and grandchildren can read with pride, a chapter of courage, fairness, and an unyielding devotion to the law. The gavel falls, but the echoes of justice remain. They ring in the hearts of those who seek the truth and in the minds of those who uphold the law. They remind us that our work is never done and that our commitment must never waver. In the end, it is not the titles we hold or the honors we receive that matter, but the lives we touch and the justice we provide. Thank you for being a part of this community, for your support of the law, and for your belief in the power of doing what is right. We shall continue forward together with our hearts in the right place and our eyes fixed on the scales of justice. Finally, I think of the quiet moments after the court adjourns, when the lights are dimmed and the room is empty. In that silence, the true weight of the law is felt. It is a sacred space, a place where the hopes and fears of many are weighed against the standards of our society. I am humbled every time I enter it. I am reminded that I am but a servant of the people and a steward of the law. This realization keeps me grounded and focused on the task at hand. It is a reminder that we must always act with humility, for power without humility is, as my father said, just corruption waiting to happen. Let us choose the path of humility and the path of justice, today and every day. The story of Chief Mancuso is now a part of the history of this city, a lesson learned and a reminder of the importance of vigilance. But more than that, it is a testament to the fact that no one is beyond the reach of the law. This is the ultimate promise of our democracy, and it is a promise that was kept on that November morning. As we move forward, let us carry that promise with us, knowing that our system of justice is strong, our commitment to fairness is unshakable, and our belief in the truth is absolute. Thank you for listening, and may we all find the strength to stand for justice in our own lives in whatever way we can. The future depends on it.